Yeah, YouTubers, Tasman here, bringing you another episode of Fantasy Grounds. Technically, this isn't only Unity, but we're still going to call it Fantasy Grounds Unity from the ground up. This episode's probably actually going to be called more along the lines of Fantasy Grounds Classic versus Unity. So, in this episode, what I wanted to do is I've been asked in DMs, in email, various ways, Tasman, what should I get? I want to get into Fantasy Grounds. I've saved up a little money and I want to actually get Fantasy Grounds. What should I get? Should I get Unity or should I get Classic? And a lot of people think Unity is just on the cusp of being released. I don't think so. I think there's a whole lot that needs to be worked on it. So my personal opinion, this is from Tasman, is if you're looking to get one, I would probably go with Classic. And this video is going to help you maybe see why I come to this conclusion. But to just give it to you right up front is Fantasy Grounds Classic has been around for quite a few years. There's a big following base for it. So if you have Classic, you're going to be able to buy, you're going to be able to get into games or host games and find players more commonly than you will with the Unity version. Unity, as I've said and will say many, many times, is early access and also is in beta. It is not near release ready, if you ask me. There's lots of things. Some of the big ones are performance issues. You know, you do have speed issues. I tried hosting a game the other night. As nice as the cloud is, some players were able to connect, other players couldn't connect right away, but if they tried like 6 times, they finally got through. So I mean, there's a lot of things. Now, these are not things to say, hey, Unity sucks, don't get it. But these are to say, hey, Unity, it has the potential to be beyond awesome or really cool, but it is still in development. So there are going to be issues here and there. If you're starting a campaign, especially, I would definitely say go with Classic, as many people have been using it. And even though it's not 64-bit where Unity is, and there are those memory issues, they're not terribly bad if you try and manage those your memory resources and such. So the other thing I want to talk about really quick is I am now at 930 subscribers. We are ever so close to my Great Big Game giveaway, which I mention at the end of most of my videos. What I want to do really quick is just give some details if you're interested in winning, what you need to do basically to be eligible. And originally, it was going to be when I hit 1,000 subs, I'm going to be giving 57 Steam games to my subscribers. But then as I was thinking about it, it's not really fair because there's 2 states of a subscriber in YouTube. One is public, one is private. I cannot see any of the private YouTube subscribers, and therefore they become ineligible to win. And I want to make it so everyone that basically recognizes my existence has a chance. So what I've done is it's still when I hit 1,000 subs on YouTube. However, what you need to do in order to win is join my Discord server. The information is down below in the description. Join that, and then I will base the selection of the winners from there using my little program I wrote. So there's that. My back onto the track of this video is there's probably, well, so one of the reasons to maybe go Classic over Unity is there's really only three or so major changes that I would say are noteworthy, that would say, okay, if you have to have these things, go Unity. But if you don't, they're pretty much identical. And those things would probably be the interface. There's a couple extra features or ways of doing things in the interface, and I include that with chat commands. There is the mapping tool that everyone knows about, like the line of sight and that stuff. And then, of course, being 64-bit, there's speed issues. Right now, Unity to me does not seem like it's been optimized for performance. Right now, they're working on getting, the features added, getting things so they're really cool, and then kind of working on performance as that goes. So those are probably my main reasons. I would say go classic. Everything is pretty much the same other than the line of sight, some dice commands, and things along those lines. So let's go ahead, and what we're going to do is I have both my Unity version pulled up and my classic version pulled up, and we're going to kind of bounce between the two to compare these different things. So as you can see here, we have our Unity version pulled up already, and other than the thing being completely different looking, the actual functionality of it is mostly the same. So as you can see in this main page, we have all our links, quick links for the web page, user manual, basic guides, all this fun stuff. Their Discord and release notes and such. We have a load button, create, load campaign, create campaign, join campaign. We have settings, and then we have check for update. And then, of course, we have disabled right now our start button. You'll see basically we have the exact same things here. We have load, create, join. We do have a manage character button that is not available in Unity. I should probably turn that off. And then, of course, we have those links right here. We have check for update, settings, and the start button. We also have a button right here that is for accessing the data folder for your Unity install. The default location for this will be under app, the user profile, app data, and then I believe SmiteWorks. But you can change that in the settings. This isn't really a tutorial, so I probably will not go into great deal of explanation on how to do things. I do definitely go into this. I have Fantasy Grounds Classic videos tutorial, and then I also have the Unity ones. So you can always go look at those and get lots of that information. As you can see here, I have the Ultimate version here, and if we go to Unity, I have the Ultimate version here. Where on this one we have the little open data folder right there. Now we have it up here. One difference is we now have this little guy which opens up the console. So you can see what's going on. If you're getting errors, that'll pop up. You still do get the pop-up of the console when errors happen. However, it's a free floating window, so it will just be there, and then you close it in separately. It's its own window. If we go and look at our different buttons, let's go into load campaign first, and we're going to load campaign here too. So as you can see, these are also pretty much the same, with the exception is Unity version also has access to the cloud. And this makes it so you don't necessarily have to set up port forwarding, makes it a bit easier for your users to connect to your table. So when you're loading a campaign, you simply find the campaign you want to load. And I think I'm going to do streaming on this, and we'll show you why in a little bit. You can set up a password. We could say PASSWRD. You can set up your name for in the chat. When you're in the chat, you have your name show. This is also in the older version. This is called the GM name. So if we come into the older version, right here, it's the username or the GM name. And then there's the password underneath it. I'm trying to think if I want this to be in any, maybe we'll do the Taz and Friends. I think both those are ones I use streaming. Um, so you have the select campaign, you have the information. Now you'll notice in here that it's kind of funny because this one thinks my IP address is 192.168.10.1, where this one thinks my local IP address is 172.16.93.1, and then the external address. I've explained before in my other videos why I'm not way too concerned that this information is here. Most people will block these out, but I have a lot of network address translation, also known as NAT, going on in my network, which changes the IPs all over the place. So it's not that huge of a deal to see that information. So when you're loading the campaign, if I'm loading a campaign and I want to make it available to people out on the internet, I can click cloud. I can choose either public or private. Or if I want to keep it in local and I want to set up port forwarding for anyone outside, I can choose LAN, choose a port, and do it that way. When we click on the different things, you can see here, this is the rule set that's being used. And then these are all the different names. Here you can see these are all the extensions that we load. This is all the same stuff that you can find in the classic version. So you have your campaign selection. Depending on your selection, it will open up the options here to say, oh, do you want this? Do you want this? I'm going to turn off Sirenscape for now. This is where you can load decals and fun stuff like that. It's the exact same in Unity. So here you have your decals. Well, I don't have very many decals in here. In fact, I don't think I have any because I don't have any of those things loaded. So as you can see, that's pretty much the same. If we go into create campaign, this is also pretty much the same. We already talked about how you set up the cloud or LAN. That's the same. Here you would choose your game rule set, right? So I want 5e. This will show me all my 5e extensions. Choose the ones I want. Give the campaign a name. And once I've done that, test. You'll see now I can thet. Not a very good speller, am I? So we have test. If we click start, this will actually launch that campaign. And the next time I come in here, there will be a campaign called test. So this is pretty much all the same. If we go into classic, you'll see once again it's all the same. Add the campaign name, add the default username or your GM name, password if you want it. You choose the rule set, choose the extensions. This does have the option to actually look at licenses when they're available, or for rule sets that you don't have but actually have a charge on them, you can purchase them. You can also tell kind of which ones are going to need to be purchased because they're kind of not dark. They're not black. They're kind of a grayish color showing that they're disabled. But you can, choose what rule set, Pathfinder, 5e, whatever you want. Each one's going to have its own thing. Pathfinder is right here, as you can see. Looks like Pathfinder actually can use a lot of the D&D stuff. Core RPG is just a really base core system, just rolling dice and stuff. Doesn't have things like advantage, disadvantage, and such. So if we come over to join game, this is where it changes a little bit. In here you can see we have username and we have host address. We can either choose the username to be our name. We can have be our character name. This is just what you want to be known as in the screen. And then localhost, for example, here is the IP address 127.0.0.1, which is the loopback address for any computer. So it's just saying this very same computer is where it's being hosted. This is what I would do if I had two instances of Fantasy Grounds up and I'm bouncing between the two. I connect localhost. You'll also see that this feature is not necessarily in Unity that I've seen, but if you're having issues with the table you're connected to, it starts being slow or something like that, one possible thing you can do is when you exit, you can come here and you can use this little nuclear symbol button and clear all your player data cache. So it'll free it up. This once again kind of works towards the resource usage as far as memory goes. With 64-bit, it's been a while, but I mean 32-bit, the highest, oh crud, now I'm drawing a blank. It's either 2 or 4 gigs is the maximum amount of memory that it can allocate. So that means it has to do a lot of juggling with memory. I'm going to hold off on this button just because I want to have the other one loading while we talk about that. So one thing I forgot to mention right here is if I'm enabling it, there is this area right here that says alias information that says able turtle insane thief. This, what it does is if I click on that and then I click start on my load campaign, what it will do is it will actually contact the server and it will say this is a representation of this person's IP address. So if anyone tries connecting to their table and uses this, this is really the IP address. So it kind of keeps the IP address secret or hidden behind the alias. And then, of course, this one actually has the connection test where you can click run test. This is going to fail because of all my natting and I haven't opened up ports in the firewall. But you'll actually see here that it will give you really quick information saying, hey, you failed. Here's what you can do to accept. You need to port forward 1802, test your connection. So what this does is this connects to a Fantasy Grounds server, and then that server will in turn try and connect back to you using port 1802. And because it can't actually make it into my firewall, it fails. With the Unity version, well, I guess we're in join campaign, so we could do that anyway. So with join campaign here, it actually kind of shows you the state right up front. There isn't clear cut what the difference between orange and yellow is. Green definitely means it's up, and this is the cloud. You can join game by GM name. You can refresh the cloud window down here to see who it is. I mean, you can see there's 366 games that are public out of 490. So I believe this is supposed to be an icon of a person or a lock. I'm not sure. But I think if it has the person, it means it's a public game. If it doesn't have the person, it is a private game. One thing I'd really like to see that other types of servers have is maybe if I click on one of these, it pulls up either a floating window or a pop-up window with additional information. So in a public game like this, that says Waterdeep, they can actually have information saying anyone can join. You need to be character this level to this level. We play on these days, just some basic information so I know what it's talking about. We also have the history of what I've connected to. You can see here that this is the campaign name, so my streaming campaign. This is the tutorial. This is when I connected to my local host. And then this is when I connected to the cloud or created a cloud one where it was public but had a password. If you're joining a LAN game, you simply put in the IP address that you're given here. If you don't enter anything in this 1802 box, that's the port, you don't need to do anything. We've talked about in my first Unity and in my Fantasy Grounds Classic, I have tutorials on both of them. We go into in depth on the settings button and check for updates. Always check for updates. Settings is where you can link your Paizo account, your Steam account, your SmiteWorks account. You also enter in your license key to do the ultimate or standard version. If you don't have a license key in there, it considers it the free or demo version. So that's the same thing that we have in here. If we go to join game, really simplistic here, but then it has those same things, check update and settings, and then start. So that's all the same. Now I'm gonna go ahead and tell this one to load the campaign. I want to do streaming, I believe. I hope that's the one I want. Let's make sure I don't have like that one loaded. Yeah, I think we're good. So I'm going to hit start. If you want more details on all these buttons and the functions and stuff like that, from what I understand, definitely check out my Fantasy Grounds Unity Probably like videos 1, maybe 2, maybe 1 and 2. It might also be 2 and 3 is where we are actually in the interface. I can't remember. But definitely check that out. So we'll go ahead and load that, and we'll come back in here. Now, manage characters actually lets you look at tables that you've connected to in the past. For example, around Christmas, I connected to a holiday table that was doing a Christmas theme. And if I wanted to go look at that character, I could just click start, although this will take forever, so I'm not going to do it. But here you can see, you can connect to different characters that you've created. Now, if you're on the free version, you can't actually export. In fact, I'm trying to remember if you actually even have the managed characters. But that's what this is. In Fantasy Grounds Unity, it does not have this functionality. I think, if I want to connect to the table for that character and I want to add any of my my extensions, I can do that here. However, it doesn't seem to distinguish, like if I said Pathfinder 2, it doesn't really change this. It doesn't like filter this based off of what I did. So this is just where you can connect, look at characters you've built. If you have a standard standard or ultimate version, I think you can also go ahead and export that character and use it elsewhere. So I'm going to go ahead in here, make sure, I think Taz and Friends is the one I want. We're going to join that. This one should be up. So as you can see in here, if you've played Fantasy Grounds at all, you'll see it is pretty much identical to what you've been seeing in the past. Some differences is that Fantasy Grounds Unity has more advanced dice commands. So, for example, I can do things like we had, well, it's not down here anymore, but if I wanted to roll a die, for example, and say I want to roll a die, let's do 4d6. This is for rolling your attributes. You roll 4 6-sided dice. If you have a nice GM, maybe they'll let you reroll ones. So we'll say R1 for reroll 1. And then we want to say drop the lowest one. If we click on this, you'll see it rolls 4 dice. And we didn't get a 1. Let's see if we can get a 1 real quick just so you can see it reroll. There's a 1. And you can see it actually rerolled the 1. And then it dropped the lowest one. So that's kind of a nice feature with the roll commands. They've really worked on those and made those nice. If we go into Fantasy Grounds Classic, we don't have that. We do have the die command. However, we can only do things such as roll 4d6. And then we have to do everything else. If I told it to reroll 1, let's see if that works. Yes, it doesn't even know that as an actual command. So that's some of the biggest things. If you want to know more about these dice commands, definitely go check out, I think it's my Fantasy Grounds Unity. It's either episodes 2 or 3. I think it's one of those two. I don't think it's any further than that. So we go deep into the commands that you can do. Other than that, you'll notice the interface looks pretty much the same. There's only a couple differences. One is up here, we do not have a minimize button, where this one we do. I thought that was a cool feature originally. However, I actually really love it because the way I have to do it with Fantasy Grounds Classic is I have to drag that window like to the bottom of the screen so only the little red bar is showing at the top, so I can do whatever I want behind it. So minimize is awesome. You can also, with it, right click on it and do maximize window and then restore back. But I just love being able to minimize. The other thing in Fantasy Grounds Classic, they have this button called, what is it called? Lighting. This initially was used to kind of give an idea or set the mood for your players. For example, if you wanted to say, oh, it's nighttime, you could do this and everyone's screen will be doing the exact same thing and finish off being this nice purpley color. They seem to have dropped this support. And to be honest, I never really used it saying, oh, and now it's, early morning. Or now it's, or maybe that's noonday. Maybe this is early morning or something. Um, I actually just like the purple background. So I just always had mine set to this one. I thought it looked nice. But you could actually do this. And what you saw change here actually changes on your player side as well. I can't move that yet. So that's the difference right there. Another difference between the two is down here. In Fantasy Grounds Classic, we have the tokens, right? And this is where you can drag tokens onto the map if you're using them yourself. And then you might have tokens from different other rule sets or modules that you have loaded. One thing you would do here is, for example, if I had modules that had tokens in them and I wanted to make them available, you can actually, it kind of looks just like the library when we go into modules here, and you can see it's data module activation. This one is actually called, I must have closed it, is actually called token module activation. So this will be modules that actually contain tokens in them, and this makes those tokens available to your table. So it basically will create another bag in here. Man, my throat is itchy. All right, so that's kind of the difference. In Fantasy Grounds Unity, we have a button called Assets. And the Assets has multiple other components in it. We have tokens, portraits, images, and then everything. When you are creating your stuff in Fantasy Grounds, and for example, you are adding in your images and stuff, campaigns here. So if we went to streaming, we go to images, these are kind of our image maps and stuff. So we have those. We also have our portraits, which we don't have any that are our own. But then you have other things such as tokens, right? The tokens are actually considered more generic. You'll see that this is the campaigns. This is just raw data, and it's just those. You also have a portraits for raw data. However, you have campaign-specific portraits. Those also do under streaming right here. So to access these things or bring them into the game, what you use is the assets window. So your tokens, for example, will be located in the data folder. So if we double click data, there's all our tokens. The other things are usually in a campaign folder. I don't think there's a campaign folder, but the reason there's not the campaign folder is because these weren't actually in the campaign. These are just in data. So there's the data. Portraits, for example, we have them in data, and then we have our different portraits. Some of these actually come with Fantasy Grounds Unity, such as the Smiteworks one. So these are ones that they give you with Unity. And then we have images. And if we go under campaign, because these are very specific to campaign, you can see all those images we have. If we want to pull any of those in, and here's an example of speed and stuff. When I click on something, it doesn't pull up extremely fast. Sometimes they can take up to 10, 15, 20 seconds. So here we are in our all pictures and stuff. Let's go to uncategorize so we can bring something in. Let's bring in this Assembler one, for example. We bring that in. Basically, how you bring it in is you drag it from here to here, and it'll pop up a window. Now, if I close it, you'll see it is now in uncategorized. If I want to put it in a different folder, I would just move to that folder and put it in there. But uncategorized is where anything new will generally go. So that's kind of the difference, where this one has a tokens button, this one has an assets. There isn't really a thing as far that I can see. I mean, we can go into folder here, and this will open up our tokens folder for streaming. So if we had specific ones we only want for this, then we could actually get them there. But really, there's not too much. There's not a place where you can actually, that I found, that you can actually say, oh yeah, I want to load token modules. So I don't know if that's still being worked on or being added or what, but it's not available at the moment. The only other big difference that I can think of between Unity and Classic is if we pull up, for example, actually, no, I know which one. I want this one, I think, because I actually have people on it. Yes, because we can show it. So the difference between that and Unity, so if you look from here, it actually looks pretty much the same. It's when we unlock it. I don't think I have that same. Was that Assembra? No, that wasn't. Let's go to image map. Go to new. So here, instead of calling it uncategorized, it's called new. Let's go see if we can just find a map. Just any map that looks decent. Precinct. What are precinct? Nah, it's not bad, I guess. Yeah, that'll work. So as you can see with Fantasy Grounds Classic, you have the same options. I can't unlock this one though. But we can add layers here, which will create our mask. So mask means anything the players see will be. I can't actually do anything on this one. This is a bad example, actually. How about original map death? Nope. I'd like a colored one at least. Settlement? That's really big. Mapping or campaign? Demon Goat. Nope, that's original. Well, it's going to work. We're going to use Demon Goats. I mean, it's kind of a hand-drawn thing, but it's going to work either way. So, for example, with this map, we can unlock it. We can add our little table up here so we can see the mask. We just mask the whole thing. We can use a pencil to draw and say up here, you know, and then we can erase our pencil mark like so. With the mask, we can unmask using control to, well, that was unmask. We can draw a straight line. I need to change masking mode on. That's what I want to do. So that will unmask it. If I hold down shift while I do that, I can actually unmask custom areas. It's a little different in Unity. If I want to unmask an area, I hold control. And if I want to unmask a custom area, I believe it's control and shift. And there you go. So that's pretty much how masking is done. And basically masking is you only can see what is not masked. There's no line of sight. There is no lighting. It's simply what is unmasked you can see. So if we close that out and we go over to the Unity version, this is one of the areas where Unity kind of shines or has some really cool features. So here you can see that we can have our mask. I think we have a mask on it. Nope, now we have a mask on it. So it's the same thing. However, if I just click like that, now you can see it's unmasked. Instead of holding down shift to do a custom shape, I actually hold down alt, and now I can do a custom shape. And also instead of, actually let's try control real quick. Nope, control shift. So now in the new version in Unity, holding down shift and dragging will remask an area that is simply not able to see. And if I hold shift and alt, then I can actually do a custom mask. However, masking isn't quite used as much. If we go remove the mask layer, masking isn't quite used as much because now we have the line of sight. Important thing to note about line of sight is it is simply line of sight. It is not it is not lighting. So basically this token right here, as you can see, I don't remember putting a wall right there, but apparently we have a wall. Oh, actually it's using the mask. Anyway, you'll see as he moves, you're getting line of sight effects. We're getting weird line of sight effects, and I think it has something to do with the mask, because this is where we drew all those weird shapes. But as you can see, areas that had the areas, you're seeing distance and stuff. You'll notice here, for example, we can see all the way to the end because it is line of sight and not lighting. So it's not saying, oh, you can only see up to 60 feet and then it gets dark. Let's see if this guy's any different. Oh, I can't grab him. Hold on, I might need to switch it. So we do have the toolbar just like we did before. We can do selection mode to select a token or multiple tokens. However, if we unlock it, this is where you actually see the real cool stuff here. Is if we turn off line of sight and back on, let's see if that fixed the, oh, nope, I just want the one guy. Oh, and we have to, we're in play mode. He can't see nothing. It doesn't look like the line of sight and masking is friendly with each other. So anyway, that's some of the things. The line of sight is where it will, I put a wall here. If we go into wall mode, you can see all the different types of walls. We have doors. I believe we have a secret door over here. We have walls. We have terrain blocking for the trees and stuff like that. So these are all things that it will use to keep track. I think, do I have a reset line of sight in here? I thought I did. Enable mask, snap to grid. Drawing layers, share sheet. So generally, I mean, you have all these things. So this is the wall, the terrain, and I have a video, I think, I want to say it's like 5, 6, 7, or 8, maybe even 9, where I really go into the mapping and things you can do with it. We talk a lot about this, specifically about the line of sight and the walls and stuff like that. We also talk in a video about effects, such as the ones that are listed here. Let's go ahead and turn off line of sight just for a minute. If we go into effects, we can change this to say water. Which one did I click on, by the way? This guy? No, I might have messed some things up when I did the line of sight. Let's see if we can, let's turn that one off. I forget you have to do that. Go to none. Let's see if we can maybe get, is it because I have it locked? Oh no, I don't have it showing. There we go. Now we should see the water. So you'll see now it's waving the water. Some things to keep in mind with these. There you can apply, it seems like, unlimited effects. This is like as if each thing was on a different cellophane layer. You would have layer 0 at the very bottom and then things just laying on top. The nice thing about that is we can actually have roofs that we can remove from things, which I think is really cool. But we can also do our like mist here. Oh, it's invisible. We can set to visible. So you can get these cool effects. I think that pretty much covers it. I think that gives you an idea of what you can do with Fantasy Grounds Unity versus Fantasy Grounds. One thing to keep in mind, as I was saying, like with these effects, You might not always be able to see it, but like if I turn on rain, for example, uh, you'll see it's actually doing it to the entire thing, not just this area right here. So the more of these things you add, the more lag you're going to have, or maybe process intensity. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Intensity. I think that's what I'm trying to say. So, these are things, and I honestly do not think that these things are in what they would consider a finished state. I think there is a lot that they want to do still. I mean, it just seems like they're missing some stuff in here. And it would be really nice, for example, if I could actually, kind of like we do with the walls, draw like a little area and say, this is the effect area for water, or, whatever this one is, I say where the effect area is, and it only applies that effect right there, which would be really nice. Because then I could, say, okay, the rain is only in here. Maybe it would use less processing power and stuff like that. But we're at 41 minutes, and I think that is beyond long enough. Hopefully, I've answered questions you might have had as far as, should I go Classic, should I go Unity? Like I say, I stand by my original decision. I would say go Classic first. If you absolutely only have the money to spend on Unity or Classic and you will never have any more money, then maybe go Unity, because it will get refined, it will get better, and it will be awesome once it's done. But at its current state, there's issues as far as the lobby goes. I was trying to connect with players, or have players connect to my table. They found that sometimes they had to connect like 6 times before it actually allowed them in. It just kept failing, or there's little quirks, and this is not because it's bad. It's not because it is unfinished, because it is beta and early access. So if those are things that you want to deal with, then by all means have at it. Go for Unity right up front. I don't know what I did with that token, but obviously it's not here anymore. But if not, then yeah, I totally messed up the other stuff. If not, definitely go Classic. You'll be able to find probably more games to join and people to join your games. You will have to set up port forwarding if you're hosting, but if you're joining, you don't need anything special. And I really haven't had Fantasy Grounds crash much, but definitely Classic is a little bit more on the stable side. All right, so I've rambled on long enough. I'm going to once again push my Great Big Game giveaway. As usual, I say, if you enjoyed this video, and I hope you did, comment, like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, check out my Discord and my other channels. Don't forget about the Great Big Game giveaway. Join the Discord. Video description has the information for that. I'm giving away 57 Steam games and a copy of Fantasy Grounds Classic. And 1 out of every 20 subs is going to get something, or every person that's on my Discord, I guess. And that's it. Until next time, I'll be seeing you later. Bye.